We've got a fascinating deep dive for you today. Imagine a meeting, right? One that really grabbed the world's attention.
Yeah.
But maybe not for what was agreed.
More for what it represented.
Exactly. We're talking about a face-to-face summit. The first one like it in years, actually.
Yeah.
And held in a place you probably wouldn't expect.
Yeah, it's really interesting because this wasn't, just another diplomatic event on the calendar. It felt very carefully staged.
Staged how?
Well, even though there weren't immediate concrete agreements, the implications of it just happening, they're pretty profound for international relations.
Okay, so today we're diving deep into that U.S.-Russia summit, August 16th, 2025, in Anchorage, Alaska.
We've looked at quite a few reports, different analyses,
Right.
trying to get behind the headlines, understand the motivations, the surprising lack of outcomes in some ways,
Yeah.
and the ripples it sent out globally.
Yeah, our goal here is really to get past the surface noise. What did this meeting actually mean? For Trump, for Putin, for Ukraine, definitely, for Europe, and I think for the whole idea of global alliances. It really makes you ask, doesn't it? In this really complex geopolitical world we're in, what even counts as a successful summit anymore?
That's the core question.
So let's set the scene. Why Alaska? Why then? I mean, this meeting between then President Trump and President Putin, it wasn't just a casual chat.
No, definitely not. It was the first time they'd met face-to-face in, about 3.5 years since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine started.
The world was watching. Closely?
Absolutely. And the location choice, Anchorage, Alaska, on a U.S. military base that was highly unusual, very strategic.
Strategic how? Beyond just security, you mean?
Yeah, security is always part of it, but think bigger picture. The U.S. isn't part of the International Criminal Court, the ICC.
Right. And Putin.
Exactly. Putin's wanted by the ICC on war crimes charges. So meeting on U.S. soil, specifically because the U.S. isn't an ICC member, that legally and politically enabled him to travel there. It sidestepped a huge diplomatic and legal hurdle.
Wow, okay. It's quite a move. And didn't the format change, too? It was supposed to be one-on-one?
It was, initially, but then it became this 3-on-3 thing. Cabinet-level aides from both sides joined in.
What does that tell us? A bigger agenda than expected.
It certainly suggests that, yeah. More than just, a top-level handshake. It hinted they wanted to get into maybe more detailed diplomatic, maybe economic, security issues. The format change itself sent a message.
Okay, so let's try to decode the leader's moves here. What was Trump actually hoping to get out of this meeting with Putin?
Well, for President Trump, this looked like a really crucial first step. He had that major campaign promise from 2024.
The end the Ukraine war on day one promise.
That's the one. Now, his aides apparently admitted privately that was, let's say, an exaggeration. But politically, it was a powerful symbol for his whole America First foreign policy idea.
Which prioritizes U.S. interests, sometimes over traditional alliances.
Right. It's about putting perceived U.S. national interests first, often acting unilaterally.
He also clearly wanted to position himself as a peace broker, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely. He talked a lot about his past efforts, Gaza, the Caucasus, and there was always that background noise about wanting a Nobel Peace Prize.
So this meeting was another potential notch on that belt. First step towards ending the Ukraine war.
That seems to be the framing, yes. And he was smart about managing expectations, too, wasn't he? Calling it a foundation-laying meeting.
Right, saying the second one is more important, kind of hedging his bets.
Exactly. Classic political maneuvering. If it didn't yield much, well, it was just the first meeting.
Okay, and flipping that, what about President Putin? Why fly all that way to Alaska? What were his motivations?
For Putin, it seems like there were two main drivers. First, break out of the diplomatic isolation Russia was facing.
Since the 2022 invasion, yeah. Sanctions, boycotts.
Intense pressure. So this meeting, the visuals were incredibly important. The red carpet, the fighter jet flyover, even riding in the presidential limo with Trump.
Optics.
Huge optics.
Yeah.
For Russian domestic propaganda, this was gold. It portrayed him as back on the world stage, a central player, not isolated at all.
A big win for his image at home, then. And the second driver.
The economy. Russia's economy was, frankly, struggling. Prolonged sanctions, labor shortages, inflation, low oil prices. It was hurting.
So he needed concessions. Or at least to stop things getting worse.
Exactly. Prevent new sanctions, maybe get some relief. Some analysts even thought his real goal wasn't peace, but just buying time.
Buying time.
Yeah, drag out negotiations, keep the talks going, while Russia maybe continues its military push, tries to gain an advantage on the ground.
So the optics were key for both. but maybe for different reasons.
Absolutely. And you saw that control in the press conference afterward.
No questions allowed, right?
None. Trump just said, "Thank you very much." Very tight media control. They wanted to push their own message, their own narrative, without any challenging questions.
Okay, let's get into the elephant in the room. All this buildup, the talk. But what was actually agreed? Or maybe what wasn't agreed? Trump mentioned ceasefire, Putin talked peace agreement.
Right. And this brings us back to that question. What does progress even look like here? The official statements were pretty vague.
Lots of very productive talk.
Exactly. Agreement on many points. But when you drill down, no actual ceasefire deal, no concrete peace agreement announced. U.S. media was pretty clear on that.
Just vague statements about progress.
Pretty much. No solid plans, no signatures on the dotted line regarding a ceasefire.
But there was that rumor, the territory exchange idea. That sounds like a potential bombshell. What was that about?
Yeah, that was fascinating. Reports surfaced that President Trump did intend to bring up some kind of territory exchange.
What would that even look like?
Well, the reported scenario was something like Russia maybe ceding some of the Ukrainian territory it occupied.
In exchange for?
In exchange for Russia guaranteeing Ukraine's security, maybe a ceasefire. And then there was that Daily Telegraph report.
Oh, yeah.
Suggesting maybe Russia could get mineral resource development rights, either in Alaska or even parts of Ukraine as part of a deal.
Wow, that's audacious. How did Ukraine and Europe react to even the possibility of that being discussed over their heads?
Not well, as you'd expect. Strong warnings came out. President Zelensky was very explicit beforehand. Strong caution against any decisions about Ukraine's sovereignty or territory being made over Ukraine's head.
He rejected any land cessions flat out.
Absolutely. And Ukrainian civil groups protested too. Same message, don't decide over our heads. And European leaders, just 2 days before the summit, they put out a statement.
What did it say?
Reaffirming the principle, Ukraine's borders shall not be changed by force. A very clear signal aimed at both Trump and Putin.
Okay, so the core issue, Ukraine, saw no concrete agreement. Were other things discussed? Any movement elsewhere?
There was talk, yes. Mention of continuing dialogue on things like economic cooperation, nuclear disarmament.
Putin seemed positive on nuclear talks.
He did indicate a sort of positive stance, praised efforts toward meaningful agreements. But again...
No actual agreements came out of it.
Correct. It seemed more about keeping channels open, which you could argue primarily serve Putin's goal of using the dialogue itself to ease sanctions pressure and head off new ones. Keeps the conversation going.
So, summing it up, no concrete deals on Ukraine, nothing solid on nukes or the economy. How did people actually judge the outcome? Trump called it a 10 out of 10.
He did, yeah, on FOX News.
Okay.
But U.S. media reporting was generally much more skeptical, pointing to that lack of specifics.
Was it just about specifics? I remember John Bolton's comment.
Yes, the former national security advisor. His take was telling. Trump didn't lose, but Putin clearly won. Meaning that for Putin, just having the meeting, breaking that diplomatic ice, showing he was back at the top table, that itself was the win. The international leverage gained, regardless of specific outcomes.
And the press conference kind of underlined that view, with Putin speaking much longer than Trump.
It certainly seemed that way. Putin spoke for what, about 8 minutes? Trump only 3 or 4? That asymmetry could suggest Putin felt he'd achieved more of his objectives.
He got what he came for. Breaking the isolation, projecting strength.
Exactly. The meeting gave the Putin regime, some breathing space. It confirmed Russia's status, at least in his eyes and for his domestic audience, as a major player you have to deal with. And it gave him a diplomatic card to play against more sanctions.
This whole approach, though, the bilateral meeting, the focus on Trump's agenda, it must have created huge challenges for Ukraine and the Western alliance, right?
Absolutely huge. It really throws that question into sharp relief. What does America first actually mean for traditional allies when push comes to shove?
It showed Trump might prioritize a deal, or the appearance of one, over things like international law or Ukraine sovereignty.
That was certainly the fear and the implication for many observers. You saw President Zelensky felt he had to get on the phone with Trump almost immediately after the summit.
To directly state Ukraine's position, be sure it wasn't being traded away.
Precisely. To make Ukraine's red lines absolutely clear directly to the U.S. president.
And what about the bigger alliances? G7, NATO. Did this summit weaken those structures?
Well, the risks certainly became more visible. Trump's style often favors these kinds of bilateral deals over multilateral frameworks. Remember his walkout from that G7 summit earlier?
Where he wouldn't sign the joint statement on Ukraine support.
Yeah, that already showed a rift. So after Alaska, you could see Ukraine and European nations feeling they needed to maybe hedge their bets a little, strengthen their own direct ties with each other, while still, of course, coordinating with the U.S.
So Zelensky, after calling Trump, also doubled down on links with Europe.
Reports suggest he specifically focused on strengthening cooperation with European partners right after that call. It looked like a strategic adjustment to a potentially shifting landscape.
So looking back, what does this all mean for us, the Alaska summit? It wasn't really about the deals signed or the peace declared. It was something else.
I think that's right. It was much more subtle, but maybe more impactful in the long run. It felt like a symbolic event, maybe a symbolic victory for both leaders, but measured in image and propaganda, not tangible results.
For Trump, ticking a box on a campaign promise, burnishing the peace broker image.
And for Putin, shattering that isolation, projecting strength back home, proving he was still a major force to be reckoned with.
And this deep dive really shows how that meeting maybe opened up new cracks or widened existing ones within the Western alliance. That tension between traditional cooperation and this America first, go-it-alone style.
It highlighted that tension dramatically. It feels like a pretty clear signal that international relations might be heading into a more complex, maybe more uncertain phase, more transactional perhaps.
The Alaska summit feels like it could be one of those moments history looks back on, doesn't it? A real marker of shifting power dynamics, shifting norms in how global politics works in the 21st century.
I think it will be remembered as a significant turning point, yes, for exactly those reasons.
Well, hopefully this has given you, our listeners, a clearer, maybe more nuanced picture of what happened back then in Alaska, and perhaps something to reflect on. What does it really mean when a diplomatic event is hailed as successful by the participants, but produces no tangible agreements? Yet it fundamentally shifts perceptions and alliances. And maybe more importantly, what does that tell us about the next time powerful leaders meet, each with their own strong domestic agendas pushing them forward?